you, fuck you, fuck you.
I'm farting.
He's out of order. This whole court is out of order.
Welcome to the High Court, the latest segment on Morning Kombat's award-winning show. I am somehow an arbiter in this situation. I'm Chuck Mindenhall. Today we're going to debate whether or not former middleweight champion Michael Bisping should be a Hall of Famer if the Hall of Fame, gentlemen, were an actual legit institution, a real place where Hall of Fame people, rather than a subjective place where the UFC puts their own in. So
the man behind the gavel.
See, you're not. All right, so we're going to start off. We're going to have 2 minutes for each of you guys to make an opening statement. Then we'll do 5 minutes of me asking you questions, 5 minutes of cross-examination, and 2 minutes apiece at the end for closing statements.
And then we duel.
And then you duel. And we will start with Luke Thomas.
I'm no Aaron Burr.
The affirmative view that Michael Bisping should be in the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I want to thank my opponent as well for being here. He should be warned, though, that I intend on having copious sexual relations with his mother subsequent to today's events. Now, with that out of the way, in this very, very important court, we're talking about Michael Bisping. Here is a gentleman who has...
More about the sexual... No, go, please, go.
Here is a gentleman who has not necessarily been given the accolades that he deserves. You will hear from my opponent today that he doesn't deserve to go in there because he doesn't have a winning record. But what he is not telling you is the full context of the events. You cannot have and tell the story of British mixed martial arts in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, nay, on earth, without Michael Bisping. So how can it be that you can have a Hall of Fame that ignores his historical contributions? First of all, let us set the tone here a little bit. A middleweight champion he was, of course, at one point. He retired after losing, but he was the first in the UFC to 20 wins, Your Honor. He won the middleweight championship against Luke Rockhold at UFC 199, which was his 26th appearance. That's the latest for anyone in UFC history. He headlined UFC cards in 7 different countries, Your Honor. Part of the story of Michael Bisping is how he elevated the division and the brand and the sport in his own country, partly by being a company man. Was the second fighter to hit 6 hours of UFC cage time behind Frankie Edgar and is the first UFC champ from England. Tell me, Your Honor, how it is possible for the negative attorney, in this case, the barrister from the worst place on earth, known as Connecticut, how is it possible that he can claim that you can tell the story of what has happened in one of the most important markets in MMA without Michael Bisping? It should be noted, too, by the way, that when my opponent argues that he doesn't have the requisite wins, it should be noted that Michael Bisping competed in the TRT era, and Chael and Dan Hendo and Vitor, all 3 opponents who got middleweight title shots before him, all of which were on TRT.
And
Michael Bisping deserves the spot.
Strike.
He's out of order. This whole court is out of order.
Comment out of the record. We have 2 minutes over here for the negative.
Well, here's the deal. Am I negative or am I just truthful? I don't know. Was that a breakdown of Anthony Smith's Hall of Fame consideration, or was that Michael Bisping? A lot of love and puffing
Your
up
Honor,
going
leading
on
the
right
witness.
there. Luke said, first of all, incorrectly, that he doesn't have a winning record. He's 30-9. Michael Bisping is a very good UFC fighter, but a great historic personality and a man we will not forget from this era. But, Luke Thomas, is this the Hall of very good? Is this the Hall of pioneership? Is this the Hall of international conquest?
It's the hall where I lay pipe with your mother.
Or that's not.
Okay, we can make that up.
Sustain.
Or is this the court of great? And really the breakdown comes down to this. Is Michael Bisping a great all-time fighter? Or was he very good, very unlikable, then very likable, now very likable? I have evidence to prove my take. The foundation of Michael Bisping's Hall of Fame resume, beyond being a company man in this UFC era, but let's say this was the baseball Hall of Fame, or the same standards as pro football. It's longevity, okay, cool. And it's a 3-fight win streak in his twilight against the likes of Anderson Silva, I don't know, Luke Rockhold, Dan Henderson, that seems to have stamped him to go to the Hall of Fame. But there's holes in both his middleweight title reign and clear holes in these 3 victories. Rockhold was just what, 1-2 in the next 6 years after this 199 upset loss. Anderson Silva was 40, and in the midst of an 8-fight stretch in which he went 1-7. Also, I think the judges got it wrong. Anderson Silva deserved to have beat him either after the third round, flying knee,
I will not stand for this rubbish.
or because he got screwed on the cards. But to close, his only title defense came against a 46-year-old man who had lost 6 of 9 coming in and dropped to this so-called Hall of Famer twice.
Your Honor, the first man to be a champ in the history of mixed martial arts. Put some respect on Dan Henderson's name, good sir!
Order. Luke, I come to you.
All right.
Speak to me about the significance of Bisping being a clean athlete for his entire career, given that it was 29 pro fights and a lot of the guys he went up against were cheaters.
Well, Your Honor, as you well know, I have a documented history of caring quite deeply about the rigors of anti-doping. And as a consequence, I can affirmatively say Michael Bisping's career, though successful, though championship level, though pioneering, though setting the table for generations of UK fighters to come after him, nevertheless is inarguably impacted by the reality that at that time, regulators did nothing, quite literally nothing, to curb the use of performance-enhancing drugs by virtue of testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, and he had not one, not two, not 3 occasions where he was set to ascend the division and was knocked down by people who were openly using at that time. Granted, within full compliance of the commission, but as we now know, a practice that was left at that time and had significant impact on his career. To the point, Vitor Belfort literally disfigured him where he lost eyesight in his right eye as he gave to the throne, to the sacrifice on the altar of athletic glory. That is what this man gave. That is what he was up against. And Brian Campbell wants you to think you can vote on the overall body of work without taking into consideration the unbelievable steps his contemporaries were going to diminish him.
If I may counter, Your Honor, those 2 specific points, not including the one against my character, I will say this. Michael Bisping may have had great success during the so-called TRT era when he was clean. But Luke, how do you explain him stopping 6 of his 8 first opponents at light heavyweight and then becoming a grinder decision fighter at a smaller division, finishing just 7 of his final 20 fights, never having a submission win in the UFC, and really only having 3 over past 2000 and our stats important.
This is incredible research.
Sorry, under the subhead of he wasn't a finisher either, just 2 KO wins after 2011. How could that happen?
Your Honor, he asked a great question.
Also,
Your Honor, he asked a great question. I will tell you. What is the best round that Michael Bisping had ever maybe in his career in terms of showcasing what he was capable of doing? I would argue round 4 of the Anderson Silva fight. Why? Because in round 3, Anderson Silva not only drops him with a knee, does so potentially, somewhat arguably illegally. Michael Bisping got off the canvas in the 4th round and put in one of the best statistical performances anyone has put in a title fight after being dropped, period. His best round is not the first round in that fight. It's the one after he got dropped, the 4th round. Was he a devastating puncher, Your Honor? No. Was he a devastating submission artist? No. But what he was a fighter, was somebody who persevered, was somebody who understood that maybe you don't have to be Francis Ngannou to still get wins in the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
The powder is coming off your Peru.
Luke, there's a reason
it's
why Michael Bisping...
It's supposed to be me asking you a question, sir.
Yeah, he runs the shit, barrister.
Does not his perseverance late in his career, especially with the loss of eyesight in one eye and the ability to dupe commissions to allow him to continue to fight, factor in to his greatness as a fighter?
He had great heart, and it's part of why we love him along with his charisma. But are you giving him extra credit points? You know how many great warriors are never even sniffing this conversation? If Michael Bisping fighting with one eye was so impressive, which it was after 2013, how do you explain the 5 losses in his career when he had 2 working eyes? Should have saw that coming? And also, let me ask you this, or tell you something. There's a reason why Michael Bisping was never appointed to fight for a UFC title, in which he got this opportunity because of his name in the twilight of his career when Chris Weidman, who maybe is to blame for his brittleness for opening this door, or Luke Rockhold's arrogance for not realizing that an outcome like that could happen. But the reason why he never actually earned a title shot in the UFC was because anytime he was about to do something in a number one contender fight,
his contemporaries were on TRT.
He lost that fight.
His contemporaries were on TRT.
2007, Rashad Evans. 2009,
That was
Dan
a light
Henderson.
heavyweight.
2010, Wanderlei Silva. 2012, Chael Sonnen. 2013, Vitor Belfort. 2014, Luke Kennedy. And 2014,
Yes,
once
that
again,
money Luke
in a
Kennedy fight.
dominant-
Yes, we all know.
Kennedy.
We all know what happened
Tim
when
Kennedy
he fought Luke Kennedy.
and in a
strike for the
dominant
record.
loss in his first fight with Luke Rockhold. Hall of very good or Hall of great? When your best second-tier wins of your career, which outside of those 3 wins in his twilight, were basing, I guess, the longevity and the consistency of his career. Who did he actually beat, Luke? Who are the second-tier guys? 42-year-old Kung Lee, who never won again? Brian Stan, who never
Kung
won
Lee,
again?
who was certainly on the
Elvis
gas at that
Sinosik,
time.
who never won again? Jason Miller, who never won again? Or early Matt Hamill at light heavyweight?
Your Honor, he is asking me to take into consideration that he ended these fuckers' careers as evidence he doesn't belong.
They were-
Do you hear this?
That is a great point, Luke. Well taken. Does it diminish from his becoming a champion that it seemed to be that he was being a little bit finicky with his next opponent?
Was he being an old
or
bitch?
was that being
You mean
part
the
of
Dan Henderson fight?
the Dan Henderson fight
Listen,
to be able
what my
to?
opponent wants to argue, what he is attempting to get you to believe, is that the resume of Michael Bisping is not perfect. Well, yes, guilty as charged. The resume is not perfect. There are losses on there. He did change weight classes. When he fought Rashad the first time, he couldn't really do anything to him. This is not the story, and nor has it ever been presented by the affirmative, of automatic, overnight, shot out of a cannon success. What I am making the case for, Your Honor, is accumulative greatness over time through perseverance, including, but not limited to, losses.
When he fought the same age competitors in his prime, he lost to the men of his era consistently across the board. It was
Gentlemen,
never a
So
question.
he got
of
to
that.
20 wins in the UFC by being consistently beaten by his
Would
contemporaries.
you say his absolute
Gentlemen,
prime?
let me interrupt
Hold
you
on,
here
Judge. Would
so
you
that you can
You will obey the judge!
Now that you can cross-examine each other.
Yes.
Please do.
All right, go ahead,
Continue.
fuckface.
Would you say his absolute prime was age 32 to 35 from 2012 to 2014? Would you say that?
No.
Oh, what did he go against his contemporaries during that
No, I would
seven-fight
not say
stretch?
that.
3 and 4. That's what he went.
If that's his absolute prime, why did he get his best results, to your math, post-prime?
Because he fought a 40-year-old Anderson Silva and got a gift decision.
Anderson Silva just beat Julio Cesar Chavez
He fought
in
an
boxing.
arrogant Luke Rockhold who did not learn from getting sent to hell by Patty Stenger on Millionaire Matchmaker. And he also, Luke, beat a 46-year-old Dan Henderson after getting dropped twice. My overall point is he's a compiler, and that's okay. So was Craig Biggio and Chipper Jones, yet you still had to vote those guys in. Don't we have any
Your Honor, Chipper Jones
decency or
was a little bit more
standards?
than a compiler, but neither here nor
His
there.
coda was criminal malpractice.
Does my
Less than
opponent
3 weeks.
have a question or more room for a continued lecture?
Checking
He
data.
lost his title to a 36-year-old welterweight who hadn't fought
Your
in
Honor,
4 years.
Your Honor, I'm asking for a question here. He doesn't have one. May I turn the tables and ask him a question?
Yes, you may.
How much did those 3 opponents, Vitor Belfort, Dan Henderson, and Chael Sonnen, being on TRT, what material impact did it have on his career? Answer me.
He compiled a very good
Answer
career.
me
The
what
impact
those
was he
3
had a
fights did to him.
The win-loss record of his career compiled a very good result because of that.
He beat Dan Henderson ultimately.
And how did he stop everybody
post TRT?
at 205
It should be noted
and
that one of the
stop-
wins he is talking about to undermine the career of Michael Bisping, the second Dan Henderson win. We were also talking about the fact that the first time they fought was a devastating KO loss, and he was on TRT at the time. By the time TRT was gone, lo and behold, Michael Bisping wins.
Do you know what happened?
Isn't that
Do
a
you know what
funny
also happened
coincidence?
after TRT was gone? Michael Bisping never stopped another big name, Luke. On top of that, okay, outside of Luke Rockhold for the title. It was
Outside
a
of winning,
fantastic moment, okay?
the UFC middleweight title, he
Also,
has
Luke,
no big wins. Yes,
all
fair
your
enough.
heroes were on TRT. This just in, Judge.
Okay, what about the idea about what he contributes ultimately to the UFC product? Could you have a UFC UK market without Michael Bisping?
Is that the stamp you're looking to? Is that the basis?
I am merely asking
What is his
you.
actual?
I'm merely asking you. Is that a true
I'm
thing?
merely asking
is it
you.
true? Is it true that the UFC would have their market presence but for Michael Bisping?
He had great timing. Did he blow me off that time in the UFC PR room when I just told him that I was reading his book and I was overwhelmed by the emotional of him sharing the story of going to prison yet still living out his dream? And he was like, hey, see you later, gotta go. And
Leading the
did that
witness
happen?
sustained.
Is
did.
the negative just mad that Michael Bisping has sent the affirmative attorney to hell online with critical comments about him.
Is the backbone
And I
of your
believe,
take...
let me enter Exhibit A into the record, it was, fuck Brian Campbell, I believe is what Michael Bisping had to say.
Let me answer your question with a question like all of my saviors have, Luke. Is the foundation of your argument on longevity and compilation, true or false? Is that the foundation of your argument? Because Jim Miller has compiled a lot.
Jim Miller was never champion.
Yeah, Jim Miller's still ahead of Bisping
Jim Miller
in
was
every
never the first
major
to 20.
category.
Jim Miller is not the first from any country. You can't have whatever generation of British fighters will come, and they will. They will all trace their lineage through Michael Bisping. It is not possible to get the next British champion without the first. The first Millie, as Vinny Paz once said, is the hardest. Well, he was the hardest one. He is the one that made all subsequent success, at least theoretically, possible.
Gentlemen, it is now time to enter your closing statements. We begin with you, Luke.
Again, I want to thank my opponent who is, despite having extensive brain damage, nonetheless appeared here just the same. I would go back to my case. What is affirmatively the case for Michael Bisping? He is not merely, to my opponent's point, someone who has compiled some interesting statistics. He is somebody whose numbers would be through the roof, but for competing through arguably the most corrupt era in the history of the sport. And even through that, managed to be the guy who was the trailblazer in one of the most important markets, certainly in combat sports, and will be for the next 5 to 10 years. But on top of that, showed what can be done through absolute will, despite not having, well, being a good athlete, huge power, great submission skills. He is somebody who has won by virtue of what we tell every athlete to do in every difficult circumstance. Don't give up. He was the one that just refused to listen to all the negative thoughts. He is the one that saw that vision through to the end. He is the one that has made everything else behind him possible. You can't have a legitimate Hall of Fame and say Michael Bisping's history doesn't exist inside of it. Doesn't work that way. You are either in it and it matters, or you have an illegitimate one and he can be excluded. I yield the rest of my time to my bitch-ass opponent.
All of his arguments, Judge, were very general or generic, just for the record.
Noted. That's it? Are you
No,
going to have a
if you
response?
want me to
This
close
is your
with
2
something,
minutes.
then I will say
This
this.
is your 2 minutes, Brian.
Do I love Michael Bisping? Yes, great character. He blew me off that time when I was sincerely telling him about his book. But that notwithstanding, there has to be a line in the sand that decides whether you were very good or whether you were great. He had great resolve. He had great instincts. He had great perseverance. He did not, however, have a great number of great wins, which is the defining backbone foundational concept that you build a Hall of Fame resume on. Tell me, outside of the upset of Luke Rockhold, again, a fighter who went 1-3 over the next 6 years, who Michael Bisping beat. That was great. In their or his absolute prime? The answer, unfortunately, is 0. We need great fighters like Michael Bisping because they in the end show us who is truly elite and who isn't. He served that role well. He put the cherry on top of an unlikely championship. I was there. I enjoyed it with you. Thank you. Not, however, despite the emotion and the love and all the expansive things he did that I read about in that book in Great Britain of bringing the masses to MMA and in reverse. Is it enough to get him above those who just have accomplished more inside the cage where it actually matters? The only true currency we have left, Judge, is what goes on between those 8 pieces of cage, biatch.
Oh, this is the COVID era. Gentlemen, both compelling arguments, and I've taken both in.
Your Honor, I have to admit for the record, I have soiled my dungarees. So if we could hurry this up.
Duly noted. You know, this is still a relatively new sport, only 30 years old from the first UFC, not even quite 30 years old. So our standard for what constitutes great in this sport might be lower than other sports.
Oh, that's a horrible start, Judge.
And I do think that we have to look at the contributions for opening new markets. If the UK and a global sport is opened up and inspired by Michael Bisping's contributions, not only in just winning the Ultimate Fighter, but then in having the career he did, having the impact he did, headlining 7 different countries all over the globe, I think that does carry merit.
Or Judge, if I can cross-examine you, does it carry merit in the hope that you will interview him again in his lifetime?
I will make a call for you on your behalf. I think that having the kind of career he did and to come back as an underdog and to persevere and those types of things, I really do believe they matter. Plus, if you look at a lot of his records in terms of how many fights, how many victories, the amount of KOs he had, even if a lot of them happened early in his career, the amount of minutes he fought with Frankie Edgar and everything else. I just think that he set an example for a lot of people a bar high enough where a lot of people will not be able to get to. It's an exemplary career. So therefore, gentlemen,
With the gavel.
therefore, look at this. I come down, we bring it in here. I'm giving this one to Luke Thomas. Michael Bisping goes to the Hall of Fame.
Yes, I would like to tell my opponent again that, lick my balls, please.
Tune in next week when we bring on Anthony Smith.
This has been High Court. Let's go smoke marijuana!
Unfortunately, Judge, the high meant that the character and the credibility that this court once
You are in
had
contempt of court, sir.
be to before your verdict.
I don't